Hello, I'm David.
Hi, I'm Julie.
Now we're going to do a review of Indiana Jones Sands of Adventure, which is for 2 to 4 players, ages 8 and up. It takes about 45 minutes to play. This is by Funko Games Prospero Hall, and is based on the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first Indiana Jones movie. First, I'm going to go over the basics of how you play, then we'll give our rating, and then our reasons for our rating, and then I will compare it to these other adventure games behind us that were inspired by Indiana Jones, except these two right here. If you look to the side here, you'll see why I have those up here right now, because this is a speed game and it's a deck building game. The reason why there's 2 phases: there's an exploration phase where we're going to go through different locations in the movie to collect cards, and then when the speed phase happens, that's when this turns over, because you put gems in it and the timer will start here, and I'll show on the other camera here. And why are you racing against this timer? Because there's a villain over 3 rounds. The first villain is Colonel Dietrich, and we have to damage him to here, basically cause 10 damage. Otherwise, we'll start the next phase with additional gems in this basket here, which means that it will likely start the timed phase, the speed phase, sooner. So we don't have to defeat the first 2 villains, but if we don't defeat the third villain, which is Belloq, we lose the game, and Belloq will get the Ark and we won't get it. So let's take a look at some of the basic things you're doing here. You have a deck of action cards here, so we're going to be moving around trying to add these to our deck. You'll see that these are attack cards. So any character that you see is an attack card. And in the action deck, you have snakes. When you draw them, you basically put them off to the side here, and you don't get to replace it. You basically use up your card drawing action, getting a useless card. You also have cards with symbols and colors on it. And some of the attack cards have a color but no symbol. So you see here is Marion with a blue, and Marion with the idol. Not an idol, but whatever the medallion. In order for us to play one of these cards, you can play, if you move to this location here, and that's what you're basically doing in exploration. You're moving to different locations. You cannot move to location with a villain unless you're Indy. If the villain lands on you, like for instance here, you have to discard a random card. If this villain lands on you, you have to put gems in the basket. And remember, when you get too many gems in the basket, it will rotate over and start the timer. And with Belloq, when he lands on you, you have to roll the torch die, and whatever you roll, you have to discard all cards with that symbol, like all cards with hats on it, or all cards with shovels. So you don't want the villains to land on you. So the way you would cause damage to the villain, let's say I play a hat, I could play an attack card that's red or with a hat, and there's no hand limit in your hand.
You passed some hats.
No, I'm trying to find a attack card with a hat.
There you go.
There you go. So then I could play Indy on top of that and do 1 damage to Colonel Dietrich. Now, you're thinking, well, why can't I just play another Indy? Well, this is not a color card. This is a hat card. So I couldn't play this, for instance. But if Julie were to play a red, well, you could play another hat like that. Julie could play a hat, and then I could play this. So we're trying to match things and do another damage. You don't have to, of course, do all Indy cards. You could go to a red Marion, if she's in here. I'm sure she's got a red card in here somewhere. Let's say she didn't. I played a green. Oh, no, you'd have to go to red. A red, and then a green shovel. So I'm trying to find one here.
You passed it.
A green shovel, and then you could play her. See how you'd have to sometimes play cards that don't cause damage to get to another card. Now, these are the basic action cards. There is a deck of upgrade cards right here, where it has 2 colors and a symbol, or 2 symbols and a color. So it's a lot easier to get things out. And then you have attack cards that has a symbol and a color. So you want to add these to your hand, and then after every round, it will go in your deck. And so now when you play the second round and the third round, you'll have some of these upgrade cards in there, making it easier to stack cards to cause damage to the villains. So let's show you real quick how you place when you move to location. Say Indy goes here, draw an action card. Okay, I draw an action card. Oh, I got a snake. I don't get to use that card, but I get to draw an upgrade card too. I draw an upgrade card, I add that to my hand, and now I roll the 2 dice. And then I roll it. So now the villain moves 1 space. And let's say Sala was there. Sala would have to discard a random card. So say Sala had 4 cards. You discard it. So you discard it, so you bury it. You put it at the bottom of the deck. And then we carry it. So that was the villain moving on to Sala, right here with the X. Now we add a gem. And so that's a symbol for a big gem. So you have to drop it in. So you go like that. Already it's leaning because you want to start the game where it's, exactly vertical. This means you're going to drop in a small one. So eventually this is what's going to happen. Drop in small ones. See what's going on here. And then it flips over. And now the sand timer phase starts up, the time phase. Here we were taking our time during the exploration phase to try to damage the villain. Now we play as many cards as we can, as fast as we can. So Julie has these cards. Let's see. Oh, wow. I didn't shuffle that, did I?
No, you didn't.
We don't have any attack cards. So what you do is in the time phase, you can, if you don't play a card, well, you can play a card and then you draw a card. So I draw a card. Okay, my turn is done. Julie doesn't have an attack card. She could try to help me. Notice I have a Brody with a book, so she's going to play a book. She's done. She draws a card. And then now I can play Brody, damage the villain. I don't have anything else I can play because she doesn't have any attack cards either. Okay, now Julie goes. We have to get to a yellow here, so she just draws, ends her turn. I go. I'm just going to draw a card. So Julie can play book on that, and then she draws. And then now I can play a yellow on there, damage, and if I could somehow get to a book here, I would. But here's, you might be wondering, how does snakes, during the exploration phase, snakes don't, they just basically take away your draws. But when you draw a snake, during the time phase, let's say I draw it, I have to roll the snake die, slowing the game down until I roll a torch. So I'd be like this, okay, and the timer's going down, so you can see right there, until I get a snake. I haven't got it yet. Everybody's watching me roll, so now I got it. So you try to damage to defeat the villain before the time runs out. If you don't, that means you're going to be adding gems into the next round, and if you don't defeat Belloq, by the time the timer runs out on the third round of the game, you lose. You'll see here these are up powers that you can get. So if you were to move here, you can get a power token. Obviously you can't move, Indy can move here, but not Sala if the villain was there. And you can use these during the time phase to play any card, to ignore a snake, and you just turn it over and you can reuse these round after round. And to interrupt, that means I could play a card when Julie's putting things down to help her get to an attack card. Over here, the first round of the game, you play with all round 1 A's, and you can turn them over and play B's, which tend to be a little bit harder. You're going to add a round 2 B card, remove a round 1 card. You can play either side, so you choose it. And when you get to round 3 with Belloq, you can choose either side and you get rid of another round 1. So at some point, you'll have this here, this will go off, and then maybe you'll replace this one and do this side or this side. So you'll add a couple locations as the game plays. And you'll see there's 2 other character cards. Each character has a special ability. Indy can move to location with villains. Sala, when you go to a location, and remember you don't want to roll dice because the villain moves and you add gems. Sala only has to roll 1 when you go to a location that has 2. Marion gets 6 cards at the beginning of a round. You usually only get 4. And Marcus gets a power token at the beginning of the game. So that's basically how you play. You got to defeat Belloq and prevent him from getting the arc. So let's go over our rating now. So I said 6.5.
Okay.
And what'd you say?
6.
6. And that's because of the speed mechanic. Now we're going to give our reasons. We actually are going to keep this game. It is fun. But you got to be in the mood to play a speed game.
Yes.
So let's take a look at our rating here. So it's a fun cooperative speed deck building game with unique mechanics combinations. The fact that it has this timer right here. If this wasn't part of the game and it was a timer that you had to do by hand, which we're going to show you one of the games behind us, it wouldn't be as fun. This is what makes it exciting, the fact that it's cooperative.
I agree.
So it's an amazing sand timer and art, but the speed mechanic can be stressful, especially when you're learning the game. We got really good at it because with a young person, you're going to probably want to practice, because what happens during the game when you're playing, you just need to get used to the fact that if you don't have an attack card, just draw.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's hard to remember.
It's hard to remember that. Draw. Okay, now you got an attack card. Now I have an attack card. But the point is, you got to get used to, you got to practice that a little bit. Because the first time we played, we lost. We hadn't gotten into our brain that just draw from the deck as quick as possible when you don't have even an attack card. So the crappy card stock, but quality to average components. So this is quality etched dice. These are average miniatures because of they're not as detailed as they should be. These cards, we usually don't sleeve our cards, but if you ever see me sleeve a game, it's because they're hard to shuffle. The card stock isn't very good. So that's a minus, because I shouldn't have to sleeve the game to be able to play it. It was very hard to shuffle and draw. Unbalanced character powers, so I wanted, Julie wanted to play Marion, but just because she gets 2 extra cards, nah, not important. These are the 2 best characters here.
Yeah.
I can go to a location with a villain, and you only have to roll
1 die.
1 die on locations with 2. You'll see during the how to play and playthrough, we actually placed all the gems into the basket. So what do you do when that happens? Well, the next time you roll a gem, you have to rotate it by hand. And so you are going to cause the timer to go automatically. So there's a disconnect between the locations, the effects that they do, and some character powers. So what do I mean by that? That means you got these locations in the movie. Okay, cool. Looks cool. But the things that you're doing, drawing action cards, really doesn't have anything to do with the location in the movie.
Oh.
It's just like, okay, we're just going to put that effect on there with that picture because it looks cool. And why is Marcus Brody such a badass? In the 3rd movie, for instance, they make fun of the fact that he gets lost in his own museum, yet he can attack? So thematically, that doesn't make sense, which is going to get to my next point here. And this is the biggest thing here. There's an emphasis on fighting. Part of Indiana Jones is him solving puzzles and escaping. Yes, he does use his fists and his whips that time, but a lot of it is just him figuring things out. Why does it have to be a villain that you fight? Why couldn't it be where Marcus Brody uses his brain, because that's what he's used to doing in the movies, to solve a puzzle? So why couldn't it be a puzzle here? And you maybe got a timer, I don't know what you could do, but they could have made it that you have an escape phase, a puzzle phase, and then there's a fist phase where you actually fight somebody. But it's weird that this movie emphasizes fighting where everybody is attacking, and really here, there are obstacles. But he's such a wimp. He never gets in a fight.
That's true.
Okay. He's sinister.
Yeah.
Now, Indiana Jones gets in a fight with this guy.
Yes, he does. I remember that.
Yeah. So that's why it's a thematic miss. There's some really cool ideas here, and it is fun, and like I said, we are going to keep it. It's one of the best speed games we have, which I'm going to show you after Julie gives her rating. So her reason. So here's Julie.
Okay. I thought this is a fun cooperative speed game. I think the sand timer and the art are just really cool. I really like it. As David mentioned, some of the characters' abilities are weak. The cards need to be sleeved because the shuffling was not fun trying to do it without it on there. And the speed portion, which I'm not really fan of, can be very stressful and very frustrating. Yeah. And that's why I gave it a 6, because I liked everything up to the speed part.
Well, again, this is a speed game, so you have to realize there's an issue with the theme, and it's a speed game.
Yeah.
So if you don't like speed games, don't get this. We're okay with this. So now we're going to
Yeah.
compare it to 2 other speed games. One of the earliest ones is Blink, where you're matching, and we haven't played this in years.
No, we haven't.
It's a solid game, and this is the
Yeah.
out of the box version. I think Mattel now has it, but you're matching number with color and shape. Okay, it's a fun 2-player game, and there's other games that have followed that suit. So I thought of that immediately when we were playing this. Oh, this is Blink with an Indiana Jones theme. But even more so, this is a Mayday game where you're trying to stop a meteor from falling. It's a cooperative, but what makes this, we haven't played this in years.
I don't remember this game at all.
What makes this annoying is you got all these timers, and so this is why you gotta keep too many eyes on timers. This was a good idea to only have one timer, and the fact that this is so thematic that the trap's gonna spring.
Yeah.
Okay, so Meteor is similar in the fact that it's a cooperative speed game. So now let's compare it to other games behind us that didn't have the Indiana Jones license, but it might as well be Indiana Jones. And we'll compare it to the first one is Risky Adventure. We haven't played this in years. This is a Queen's game. You're going around to different locations. I can't even remember how this game works.
It doesn't look familiar at all to me.
We played it a couple times. The fact that it's been sitting on our shelf for this many years tells us that it wasn't. Eventually, we may cull it and sell it, but we need to play it again. But it wasn't so good that we haven't played it in years. Okay. Now, this one we haven't done a video on this yet, but this is like an 8 or a 9 for us, where you go into the tomb, and it's one of those games that you get workers as you go along, and as your workers, you can advance your workers quickly. It's a race game, but as you advance, you can get to wherever you want, but then you leave things behind. It's one of those cool track games where I can move farther ahead and get something, but then I leave stuff behind. So we like this game a lot. For us, we'd play this over Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
But again, it's not an Indiana Jones game. Then Escape. Now this is a speed game, and this is the big box one. I don't want to turn it over
It'll make a mess.
because it's the box. A lot of the stuff inside will fall over. When we want to play a cooperative speed game, this one, well, now that this is easier to set up.
This is way easier to set up.
But this is more thematic. So I don't know. It would be a toss-up between the two. Mm-hmm. Because this has expansion fatigue.
Yeah.
Because there's so much in it.
Oh my gosh.
All the expansions.
Yeah.
It's like, do I really want to deal with setting this up right now? You know, that
Probably
kind of thing. But it's a great game.
Yeah, it's a really fun game.
It's so it's a toss-up between the two.
Yeah.
I think Indiana Jones would get to the table more
I think
often.
so, because it's so much easier to put out.
Okay, now the next two here are out of print,
Oh.
and they are amazing in terms of its theme. So you can see right here, this actually has a boulder. It's based on Indiana Jones there on the left-hand corner, so if I open it up. But we haven't played this in a while, and this has some fiddly rules. So the reason why we haven't played it as often is because, do I really want to read this big rule book again? Because everything that you do, going in the lava room, going over the wooden bridge, dealing with the river, has its own set of rules.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's cool when you remember how to play. Okay, here's the boulder. It's really cool. This is the lava room. It's blocked out. And I even have the miniature upgrade, I believe. But it is very thematic because you are going to have to deal with the boulder, and the wall is closing in, and the wooden bridge. It's just, I don't want to deal with reading the rules again.
Right.
But it is more thematic than Indiana Jones. Now the one that's the sequel to that, and this one is easy to play, you go into a pyramid and you have blocks that fall down, and so you're trying to steal treasure why mummies are running around. The cool thing about this is
Oh, I remember.
you
this
draw a
one.
block and it's going to fall on space 17, and if enough blocks fall down, this is a more accessible one here. You see here, you got the blocks can fall down in these locations, and if you get trapped, they're numbered here. See how that's 17 right here. It falls down, and you're going to be treasures on the outside right here with mummies moving around. So you're going to try to get treasure out of the locations and then escape before you get trapped by the blocks. This is the most...
Yeah, I like this one.
This one's really good. It's easy to play. We've played that one more than the other one. So this one, both of these adventure ones are more thematic. Mm-hmm. This is easier to play because of the rules.
Right.
Not as easy to play. So it's like one of those things where, hey, I want to read the rule book here and we'll play the adventure. So you got to kind of plan it out. You just can't take it off the shelf.
Right.
Whereas this one is very easy to get to the table. So the two that we'll play over Indiana Jones are right here.
Yep.
Luxor and the Adventurers.
I agree.
Yeah. So that gives you an idea. If you like speed games, get Indiana Jones. And if speed games is not your cup of tea and you're not so bummed out by the lack of theme, then it's worth getting.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please tell your friends, and we'll see you in the next video.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.